Welcome to the Redeemed Vision podcast, where we bring sight to the blind and freedom to those enslaved by our pornified culture. Here, we dive into hard but important topics such as pornography, sexual identity, true freedom, real love, and living marriage well. Go deep with us as we uncover what Redeemed Vision means for each of us living in the world today. Come to know yourself, the power of redemption through Jesus Christ, the joy of laughter, and how to live in gratitude and wonder. This is Redeemed Vision.
Hello there. Welcome to another edition of the Redeemed Vision podcast. I'm your host, Steve Pokorny. It's an honor to have you here. Again, this is an outreach, freedom-coaching.net, freedom coaching, where we are breaking the lies of the pornified culture, helping to bring both men and women free from the lies of that culture into a glorious freedom of and a future of hope. So an honor to be with you. I'm very excited about today, but again, a little housekeeping for you all on this before we enter into today's conversation. A couple of our sponsors. One is Catholic Casts. That's Catholic with one C in the middle. There's a collection of recordings and for over 2 decades of Catholic conferences. Can't be found anywhere else in the world. I was just at the National Catholic Singles Conference a little bit, and one of my talks is up there, so there's a plug for that. You're definitely being enriched by this. It's a very low cost of $9.95 a month, and pretty much unlimited talks that you're going to find there to develop the gift of yourself and discover the practical ways to live out the will of God in your life. So again, that's CatholicCasts.com. Also, another sponsor, Voyage Comics. This where a lot of Christian media typically has subpar products. They don't appeal to us and to a wide audience. So Voyage Comics provides amazing stories that are rooted firmly in the Catholic faith, and anyone can pick them up and enjoy them. And click on that link below there. It's going to support this mission of the Redeemed Vision podcast. Also, I mentioned Freedom Coaching. Freedom Coaching, it's that one-to-one mentoring system and mission designed to break the attraction to pornography and unchaste behavior for both men, women, and children, and men and women, children, and old guys, and all in between through a transformation of mind, heart, and vision. So don't just quit. Be transformed. Break the power of porn. Also, one of the aspects that helps us to do this work is our Freedom Coaching Foundation. It's a 501c3. If you're in the United States, that means it's tax deductible. And God has put this on our heart to be able to spread this word. And so we need especially scholarships to be able to support those who can't afford our services fully, and we want to help them out. So this is one of the ways you can help partner with the mission to disrupt, shall we say, the supply chain of the pornified culture, become part of our supply chain. And you can find out how to do it right on our website where it says, help us grow. Click on the link, lots more information there. And also encourage you to click the bell if there's more, subscribe to this podcast, and share this so we can get the word out about this and many more very important topics that our world really not talking about in the way that we talk about them here. So it's an honor to have you here. And I want to draw into this conversation as a man who has been married for over 14 years. Yikes. But if I can do it, anyone else can, shall we say. I can attest to the fact that marriage is tough. There are many pitfalls that can potentially sideline one's marriage. And if you haven't noticed, the institution of marriage needs a lot of help. This is why we call them, shall we say, some experts. I don't know if they call themselves experts, but I do, because they know a whole lot more, perhaps, about this thing called marriage. And honor them here. This is I'm introducing you to Joseph and Crystal Gruber. They started out as Focus missionaries, and they were married in 2012. They are on staff with Focus, and please say hi to your founder for me, and basically serving campuses all across the country and also in parishes, and their focus of their work called Our Outpost .org. That's the website, ouroutpost.org, is to focus on helping Catholic singles and couples live out the church's teachings on marriage. Their ministry is also to help reawaken an authentic Catholic culture in the world. Easier said than done, and I definitely want to pick the brain on that. And one of the ways they believe the best way to build this culture is by building incredible individual relationships, and this helps to flourish, especially in incredible marriages. So without further ado, Crystal and Joseph Gruber, welcome to the Redeemed Vision podcast.
Thanks for having us, Steve.
Totally an honor to be there, and it was wonderful, Crystal, to meet you at the National Catholic Singles Conference. You and your little one. You mentioned that you had this other big guy who lives with you in the same house. I'm like, where is he? He's not here. He's watching our other kids, and I'm honored to finally have here. Joseph, thanks for doing your due diligence and for being here as well today.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I'm excited we were able to find some time.
Finally, awesome. So I want to go back. We don't like to do surface here on the podcast. Obviously, your mission, your ministry is very, very important. But what some of our previous conversations has been, sometimes it's been our wound, our hurt, that oftentimes bring forth our mission. So I'd like to go back and I'd like to do kind of individual, and then we'll bring it back together as a couple. I want to hear your story a little bit, as brief as you can be, so on a time limiting here. Growing up, and I guess we'll go to the fairer sex first here. What was your experience, Crystal, of marriage, of relationships growing up? Yeah, at the time, yes. You've got very clear skin, Joseph, but we'll go with your one.
So, my parents had a beautiful marriage. I would see a distinct memory that comes to mind is my dad would travel for work sometimes, and he would go to Japan, and he would be gone for 10 days, 2 weeks. And this was before the airports were shut down, right? So you could go and meet someone at the gate. And I remember my mom taking us to meet Daddy at the gate whenever he was coming home from one of these longer trips. And just my mom's face of like anticipation of my dad arriving home and their joyful reuniting. And they would always give each other a hug and a kiss and, say, I'm so happy to see you again. Before Dad would greet me and my sister. And so I grew up seeing, my parents, certainly not a perfect relationship, but a lot of beauty in their love for each other that was apparent on the regular. And a lot of my friends growing up, also their parents were together and had pretty good relationships. So when I was spending time with friends of mine, I was able to see other marriages that were pretty decent examples, except none of them were Catholic. So I didn't grow up in the church. I'm a convert. And so it was this really interesting thing where I was seeing a lot of examples of beautiful marriages that had a lot of goodness in them, but they weren't sacramental.
God, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Joseph, what about you?
So I'm from a relatively large Catholic family, relative to almost every Catholic family, I suppose. I have 10 brothers and 3 sisters, so
small.
Relatively large. Yeah. And so I think, not that we're completely mirror opposites, but there was a lot of the objective good in the sacrament of matrimony lived out. Like, my parents both knew and believed deep in their hearts in the providence of God, in the goodness of children, and the fact that they were all a blessing. How that was particularly lived out might have been a little bit more difficult. And they were also dedicated to one another. There was never a question that they would leave each other. There was never a question. The whole idea of divorce was a somewhat foreign concept to me until maybe high school or so. The joy of marriage wasn't maybe the thing that you would note the most about my upbringing, but the goodness of marriage and the goodness of life was definitely there. Is that fair, Crystal?
Yeah.
I think it's very fair. That's good. Okay, so that gives us obviously kind of a background going in here. So from what I understand of your background, you're both, one or both of you are missionaries at this point with Focus. Is that correct?
We were, yeah.
Okay. Individually here, from as I think it is wise, there's a kibosh on the first year of Focus Missionary of dating. So at what point was there the idea that this isn't just, I'm speaking to Joseph for a moment, this isn't just a girl, it might be the woman, right? For me, right? How did that what was your experience of that I don't know, that transformation of your vision there? How did that come about?
So you're right. So Focus asks every first-year missionary to take a fast from romantic relationships, accepting those who are already married, because we do hire some married couples. We left Focus to start our marriage ministry this past year. I'm still getting used to not associating myself with the organization. Anyway, my first year with Focus was in 2009, and Crystal's first year with Focus started in 2010. So I had gone through a year's worth of a dating fast, and then Crystal started one right when we met. And so she was my teammate, in fact. We were missionaries at MIT in Boston, and I spent that year explicitly, I told her very early on in our year that it was my job to love her as a brother. And so I knew she didn't have any brothers, and I wanted to be like, I want to show you what the love of a brother can be. Because I had done some amount of maturing, I had done some amount of growth during my year of dating fast. It's like, I can do this. And I did. In fact, to the point where I didn't even consider her as a romantic option throughout the entirety of that year. Crystal, did you want to jump in at this point?
So I ended up with a crush on Joseph throughout the course during the year. And it was a thing that I was for keeping in the secret of my heart. And with the exception of, I ended up telling 3 people. Two of those people were priests, my spiritual director and my confessor, who both knew Joseph, and they both told me I was going to have to tell him because they knew the like real sincere purity of Joseph's heart and his ability to see me as a sister.
And my obliviousness.
And his obliviousness to my
welcome to the club, Joseph.
Subtly trying to be flirtatious without being obnoxious. And but then I also told a student that I was working with that I had feelings with him because we were just talking about, emotional chastity and guarding our hearts and what do we do when we have feelings for somebody, but it's not appropriate to necessarily express them in full. And so I shared with her that I had feelings for Joseph.
And so this student emailed me a 1-line email. Dear Joseph, what are your intentions toward Crystal?
You have a stalker. What? No, she didn't say that.
Well, and I read that email thinking, oh, she must think that I've been flirtatious with Crystal or somehow misleading toward her. So I should probably clarify again my intentions toward Crystal to love her as a brother loves a sister. And so at the end of our year together, I sat her down and I was like, this might be a little bit of an awkward conversation, but just to reiterate my point from the beginning of the year, you're off your dating fast now. My intentions remain to love you as a brother. I was given reason to think that maybe people thought that I was being flirtatious with you, but let's just to be clear, and it probably doesn't matter too much because I don't think you have any feelings toward me. So just to make sure we're on the same page.
Which time I realized that these priests were right and I was going to have to tell him. So I said, actually, I'm quite fond of you. And he said,
oh, okay.
So that's how my dating fast ended.
I like it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And by the way, we forgot to mention something really important here. In a line or two, so because some people may be oblivious, Focus, what is it?
Focus, the Fellowship of Catholic University Students, founded in 1998 by Curtis Martin, is predominantly a college campus missionary organization. They've branched out to do other missionary ventures, such as going into parishes. I think Focus might be the largest sender of missionaries, like internationally right now. because they do spring break and summer mission trips, and they've been sending some missionaries for year-long stints. We're also in they're also on several campuses internationally. Something like 1,000 missionaries now. It's a pretty large organization.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is to win people over to Jesus Christ and to his bride, the church, to build them up in their faith and to equip them such that they can be sent on mission. And yeah, it's a wonderful organization. Very blessed with all of my time there. Would not be the man that I am now were it not for missionaries coming into my life when I was in college. Would not be the husband that I am without the opportunity to learn how to lead people and how to love people by being a missionary and by being a leader of missionaries. So good organization. If you don't know about it,
Check it out.
check it out.
Excellent. It's deep in my heart, and I expressed at another point. I once interviewed with Focus. The plane was actually late on the way over there, and we got free alcohol. That's a side note. I don't think it had any bearing on why I get the part. But God had other plans. But the work that even I think it was in Kansas. I think we were in Kansas doing an interview, and many years ago, and that would lead me. The no would open up the door to other yeses. So it's an encouragement, I think, all of us. Right? Sometimes God doesn't allow us to get what we think we want, so that we're led to His deepest heart, and that's exactly where we're supposed to be. So it's a beautiful thing. So thank you for your time. But Crystal, you have something to add to that?
Nope.
Okay, awesome. Okay, it is. So you move from a non-dating fast, from oblivion to now we're dating. What again, obviously you're around college students, you've been around the block, you've seen some of the mistakes and foibles. Were there witnesses? Again, we talked a little bit about your experience of growing up in families, right? Committed marriages. But was there a paradigm for dating? I'm not going to say a checklist, but kind of a vision for dating that you would pick up on, things that you wanted to avoid, what other couples you saw that you're like, we want to follow them in our discernment for the sacrament of marriage. Describe that experience for us.
So for me, I had dated poorly. And so I knew what I didn't want to do. And not that every aspect of the relationships I'd been in were bad, but I'd been in a handful of pretty serious long-term relationships. And there were a few good things from them that I certainly knew were helpful and knew were valuable things in being in a relationship with somebody of the opposite sex. But I also learned a lot about what I didn't want to do leading up to marrying somebody. And in fact, one of my previous relationships, I had been engaged and had called off that marriage. And so that was also something that was in my mind of, yeah, what does that mean? What does that look like? What went wrong there? How can I avoid those pitfalls moving forward? And unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of great examples of people doing it well. So it, for me, was more of a bringing to the table the few things that I'd done well, the things that I hadn't done well, and how can we make improvements moving forward. But Joseph was quite intentional with me.
Yeah, I had two major romantic relationships prior to Crystal, and both of which I was somewhat dissatisfied. Well, actually, yeah, I was dissatisfied with both the relationship itself, but also how I behave and how I communicated. And I was like, I don't want to date that way, but I don't want to only be reactive. I want to find, are there any principles that we can hold to that are positive? Is there any way to conceive of dating to be a more joyful experience, a freeing experience, one where we're not left guessing all of the time about where we're standing with relation to each other? So I told her from very early on, I just want to be very clear with you. I want you to be able to be clear with me. I want to experience freedom to communicate. And if we feel like we've come across something that doesn't feel free, can we at least say that?
And you mean a relationship without games?
Yeah,
He does.
I do. I do.
Weird. Is that possible?
I think so, Steve. Unless I've been had this whole time, and this is a huge con.
Wait, Crystal. So wait, how was that conversation? How was that experience for you?
So it's interesting because I remember telling people, because Joseph, he would just say, like, after our first date, he said, I've taken you on one date and I would like to take you on another date. And after we'd been on 2 or 3 dates, he said, I've taken you on a couple of dates and I'd like to keep taking you on dates, but if you want to go on dates with other people, that's fine, which means I'm free to go on dates with other people, which I probably won't, but I just want to be clear about where we are. And also, like, in terms of commitment, and like, I won't be like kissing you or trying to hold your hand or anything, but I might give you a hug from time to time. He was very clear. And then when then later it was, well, I want to keep dating you, but only you. And I would be bothered if you went out with somebody else. And he just was so clear. And I remember telling, different friends of mine about these conversations, and they were like, that feels awkward and uncomfortable. I was like, I mean, a little bit, but there was no question in my mind about where we were or what was going on or what his intentions are. And every single person that I would tell that to would say, oh, that's really refreshing. And that was my experience, right? It was kind of awkward and super refreshing.
Yeah. And just to be mindful of different things where it would become unclear, like what I had seen in other relationships where, like, that this doesn't seem like a clear way to communicate. So people who are constantly texting with their boyfriend or girlfriend, it's like, that's like the least ideal form of communication. You're stripping it of all kinds of context, of tonality, of expression. I don't want to constantly text with you as if I'm constantly in need of validation. I don't want my validation to come from you, and I don't want you to feel obligated to constantly validate me. That doesn't seem realistic. So if we text, it should be like logistical. Can we find a time to talk? And not actually have the discussion via text.
Or I'm going to be 15 minutes late.
Yeah, things like that, like real quick,
that's
little things. Yeah.
Let me. I want to jump in. This is critically important. You bring up a very important point, an important word, I should say, validation. Okay, and I think the way in which a lot of people prepare for, well, a lot of people, the way they go into dating. Okay, many of them are not even looking at marriage. Right, dating is a thing that I do to validate my feelings. There, we'll do that. Not just myself, but my feelings here. And many times dating is a preparation for divorce because we're not building on solid principles. So if dating is not, and I think there's something to be certainly said, and we can go down that rabbit hole regarding texting and use of technology in relationships. I think that's an important conversation. If it's not about validation, what is dating about?
Yeah, it's marriage prep. It is the part of proximate marriage prep that leads to the sacrament of matrimony. So on our wedding day, I wanted us to be able to get married, which means we had to be free to do so. We needed to know what it was we were saying yes to. So if there wasn't clarity about what we were doing, and if there wasn't freedom, we literally could not be married on our wedding day. So I wanted that freedom and clarity to be there from the beginning, because I also had this like inkling that maybe the wedding day wasn't the end of the relationship, but rather the beginning of many kinds of conversations in which freedom and clarity would have to fall into play. Like, literally, we deal with the matter of life and death when we get married. Like, we're given a license to create life, and we're given access to each other's lives to the point of death. So it deserves the kind of discernment to find the person that we can communicate freely and clearly with, and to be the kind of person that we can be free and clear in our communication. So, yeah, there's this aspect of marriage. If you look up the sacrament of matrimony in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it's not put under a sacrament of initiation, and it's not one of the sacraments of healing. Right? It's a sacrament of ministry. It's ordered toward the salvation of other people, which means that it's a sacrament for those who have been and continue to be saved by Christ and redeemed in his love. And it's made for a mission wherein my spouse, my future children, the community around us, our extended family, these are all the mission field that we join together as teammates. Like the idea of being missionary teammates, that we got the opportunity to do that for a year as essentially brother and sister, was in itself a huge preparation for marriage.
Mm-hmm. Well, and when we hear the words marriage preparation, most people think about the immediate preparation, which is I'm engaged to this person and we're preparing for us to marry each other. But the church actually talks also about remote preparation, which is what we ought to receive as children growing up in the context of family life, seeing happy marriages like we started out talking about. And then there's the proximate preparation, which is I'm of an age where marriage is a thing I could consider legally. And so I ought to prepare myself for that, regardless of whether or not I'm actually in a romantic relationship. And so when we do enter into dating relationships that are romantic, those things, that is part of this proximate preparation for marriage. And like you said, if we don't see it as preparing for marriage, then we're preparing for divorce because we're not, we get to train ourselves in the context of a good dating relationship. That doesn't mean it has to work out. That doesn't mean it has to end in marriage. It doesn't mean that every breakup is training you for divorce. That doesn't mean that at all. Mm-hmm. But it does mean if you're not being clear and if you're not being free, then you're probably getting more hurt than you need to.
And if I can comment, I think these are two huge principles. I think for anyone who is somewhere on the radar that I want to get married, or maybe we're already involved in a serious relationship, we're looking at that. Does this person help me to become more or less free? Am I becoming more of who I should be, or is this person swallowing my personality? I've seen that happen, and it's not pretty. And you bring that into a marriage, and it's those wounds go very deep. Right. So I think these are two very important things to go into. So I'm gonna go a little deeper here. Pick one, right, that you're willing to share here on the podcast, if you're willing to share. We all have stuff that we're working through, right? We all have stuff that we have to dig into. No one's perfect, right? And I like to say that marriage is the walking in the woundedness of the other to get them to heaven. That's the way I'd like to put that. So in your dating relationship, right, because dating in the light of getting to see the other person, as I've expressed all the time on the podcast, right, the four deepest desires of the human heart are to see and be seen, to love and be loved. What was one weakness, one detriment, something that you felt like I need to work on, that your future spouse here in this room, right, helped to maybe draw that out of you, saying like, okay, there's something I gotta work on, and how did that healing come about, or a move toward down the road of healing, because we might not be fully there yet?
That's a really good question, Steve.
I think that's why he does interviews.
I've been validated.
Praise the Lord. I'm trying to think. Do you have something coming to mind quick?
And there she goes. Joseph. Now that she's not there, you can stare on here. Oh, wait. She's back.
Yeah, let's see. Can you think of things for me, or I can think of things for you? That's easy.
Okay.
Do you want to go there? Are we willing to go there?
Tell me. You see me better.
Here we go.
You see me.
And you see me better.
Haha.
And hold on, before you go there, don't use your thought. Look at what's happening to our audience. Like, look what's happening. This is a couple, married couple, they're going to look at faults honestly, but it's not as a weapon.
Yeah.
It's I want to help you. I see you with all your faults, all your imperfections, and I'm going to love you through them. And there's beauty here. That's good. Sorry, I couldn't help. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a theme with you. You don't know what I'm going to say. Okay. Well, would you look at that?
Yeah.
And I think
I love this.
So it was your need to. Did this come up very much in our dating relationship, though?
Yeah, that's what I'm
question.
struggling with. Is like, what are things that were like in our dating?
Yeah.
Was it? Well, and even if it's not there, was it? I mean, so if there's nothing there, it was perfect in dating, and then we got married, and like, year one, oh my gosh.
Honestly, fairy tale all throughout, Steve. Fairy tale all throughout.
Didn't walk at all. Just glided.
Yeah. So, what would be a good one? So, I mean, one of the things I think that crept in the first year of marriage definitely was a faulty understanding of happiness and how to help you be happy. So I was bringing into the relationship a disordered good desire for my wife to be happy, but I was diminishing what happiness was to the most basic level. So is she happy, as in, is she pleased at all times? And in our first year of marriage, she had moved to a new town. She had started a new job. She had gotten married. I moved in contemporaneously with the getting married. And
our firstborn child was born due 9 months and a day after we were married. So pregnant right away.
Very
So all of the stressors, or at least the vast majority of the stressors, and so being pleased was not really on the table when you were morning sick all day long for 3, 4, 5 months at a stretch. So that took several years for me to really understand what was my role in that and what was my goal to help you toward. Because every time I was trying to help you be pleased was not actually corresponding to what you most needed, which was to be reminded of why you were choosing the things that you were choosing. And in light of, the one who loved you into being and who was sustaining you and was there with you in the suffering, who was there with you pre-birth of our firstborn, post-birth of our firstborn, throughout our first 2 miscarriages. It's like my job was actually to orient your view toward Christ. And I think when I got married, I lost sight of that to a large degree. So that was an embarrassing thing for me as a Catholic missionary, because I was a Catholic missionary at the time. And failing in a good-natured sort of way. But that was one.
I have a follow-up on that. But I want to move to Crystal on here for church, just because our time is tight here, and I want to make sure I get her in that.
Real quick though,
good,
while we were dating though, I didn't mind so much if she was unhappy. Right? And this was an amazing thing. Like,
way to go, pal.
Yeah, right? Like she had a pretty difficult assignment her second year as a focused missionary, and at least once a week our phone call would involve her crying. And I was like, I don't mind this. It's not my job to fix her emotions. But somehow I had this switch in my mind when we got married that, of course, as a husband, I fix emotions. That's now part of my toolkit.
Well, and this makes me think about maybe something for me, which hopefully you don't mind me sharing, is
I don't know
that
I trust you.
We like in that Joseph also had challenges in that year that we were dating and long distance and was discouraged a lot. And
Oh, yes, so I was so very discouraged.
and that has continued to be something that you struggle with. And I, generally speaking, for most people, I'm very encouraging, but somehow am still learning how to be encouraging to Joseph and figuring out how that fits in with him battling discouragement. And so that I think is something where, I knew that going into our marriage, that was something that was going to be challenging, and it is something that is challenging, but it also is, yeah, I think it helps us both it helps me because part of it for me is my being encouraging. I often don't really see somebody. I'm good at like saying something that is more surface that makes somebody kind of feel seen enough that they like take it as encouragement. But Joseph doesn't buy that. Like he sees through it if it's not the real deal. And so in the same way that I feel like I'm learning how to encourage on a deeper, more meaningful level, and it's also calling him out to say like, hey, no, these are things you're actually really good at and you need to be okay with that. Yeah. So that's an example.
Beautiful. No, so let me ask, like let's do the flip side of these. Let's just stay on these two issues for each of you. Okay. How do you see redemption working in the midst of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of where I'm starting to see the redemption for me in being able to see more deeply and being willing, and for me, like you talk about seeing and being seen, that for me is more of a struggle than the loving and the being loved of the like, ooh, let's not see too deep. Let's not look too deep, and being willing to encounter the feelings that are there is something that I am being called to because of that. And that is redeeming me when I let it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Crystal, you've actually suffered quite a bit over the years, physically and emotionally. And to actually be present to that without being able to fix that is something like you are participating in some of the suffering of Christ by bringing new life into the world and by fostering that life. And to be present to you in that has been, it puts a different spin on everything from at the Mass when the priest says, "This is my body given up for you." And like Crystal says that on the daily, "This is my body given up for you," to each of our children.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's a kind of radical love that is sometimes hard to take in. It's hard to really acknowledge that for what it is and the sacrifice that it is. When I do acknowledge it and when I do just take a step back and understand that that's what's going on, there is a profound sense of gratitude and a desire to reciprocate, to also lay down my life and to be a better husband and a better father, to correspond. And also the hard thing is just because you are suffering doesn't mean like doesn't mean that I have to suffer too. Like it's okay if I'm doing all right and you're not, because then I can continue to serve.
Yeah.
When you can't.
Well, and I think this has been cool too to see like you redeeming your understanding of what it means to like help me be happy is that like there actually can be a tremendous amount of contemplation, the highest form of happiness present even in the midst of tremendous suffering. And being able to lean into that is something that's been really cool to see you gaining a deeper understanding of what does it mean to like happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like? And what is that on a deeper level than just the surface? Like, do you feel nauseous today or not? And how can I fix it if you do?
Yeah, if I can jump in here, thank you for what is being shared here. I mean, these are real lived experiences here, where the answer is Emmanuel. God is with us, right? And he doesn't. It's not. I mean, we talk about Easter and Christmas as Catholics, and those are really important. But he's in the day in day out events, and I think there's a reason why Jesus first except for 12. There's a blip at 12. We knew nothing of the first 30 years of his life. I mean, let's be honest, right? Pretty much 20 to 30. We'll put it there. So it's those quiet, hidden moments of Nazareth, right? And it's right here in the midst of here. And I didn't get how many children.
We have 6 children, 6 that you can
Praise
meet.
the Lord. Okay. Praise the Lord. Wonderful. Okay. So obviously in the midst of that, right. And moving from, and I think this is what makes marriage beautiful, but challenging. It's really a death of self. It's a death of the total, complete and utter giving, while in the midst of that it's a careful balance here. The proper self-care must also come in there, right? And actually, let me go on that. Let's go very, very practical here, and then I want to move on to your ministry and be able to move from here. How do you? What does proper self-care look like for you? Because this is part of integration. This is part of being human, right? What does that look like on an individual level for both of you?
So this is interesting because I think it ties into the work of our ministry right now. One of the things that has been really foundational for us in our marriage is Joseph discovered the works of Patrick Lencioni, and this was what started to transition him away from realizing, making you happy on a superficial level isn't the answer. He started doing more as a team director to learn how to direct his team better. And he said, well, what if I did some of these things for our marriage? So having a weekly time to talk about important things and make decisions is a really big piece of what we teach people at our ministry and also what we do in our life. And one of the components of that, to get to your question about self-care, is we have objectives that we check in on, and we just go through the objectives quickly: red, yellow, green, what's going on here. And one of the objectives—
red is bad, green is good.
One of the objectives—
I'll let you guess what yellow is.
is self. Like, how are you we'll say, how's our relationship with God? How's our marriage? How's our relationship with our children? And how are you doing? And something that we've noticed over the years with that is what might be green one week might be red another week, and vice versa, depending on the season of life that we're in and what's going on. And so that gives us a weekly touch point to ask each other, like, how are you doing and what do you need? And also, I mean, for me, I found throughout the course of motherhood that, like, what does good self-care look like has changed a lot. And I found that very challenging. But so some seasons that's, I need to make sure that I've got a pair of shoes right next to my bed so that when my feet hit the floor in the morning, I put those shoes on and I go for a walk right away. And the other day, I haven't been going for my morning walks since our most recent baby. And so I hadn't been going for walks. And I was like, I'm not doing well. I'm not okay. And I said to Joseph, I'm like, I'm just going to sneak out for a 10-minute walk. So I snuck out. Nobody noticed that I had left except for Joseph. And I got back in the door and I was like, I think that just solved 45% of my problems. So, like, honestly, for me, sometimes a 10-minute walk in the woods is enough to help a lot.
Well, to have this realization, like, it wasn't like she was stealing time away from the family to go for a walk. She's like, I'm going to sneak away, not because she felt guilty, mostly because if any of the kids had seen her, they would have wanted to tag along. And not because she thought that I wouldn't want her to go for a walk. This was a huge realization for me. Distressingly long period into our marriage was that my wife wanted me to do well. She wanted me to succeed. She wanted me to thrive. She actually liked it better in the home if I was doing well, and that she was willing to make sacrifices and to change things so that I could be doing better. And I could be doing the same for her. Like, I was on her team. She was on my team. even when I wasn't on my team, she could be on my team. Even when she wasn't on her team, I could be on her team.
Yeah, there were times early on in our marriage when Joseph realized that I was struggling just being at home all day, every day with the kids. And so he would come home and be like, get out, like I'm kicking you out. And I like wouldn't know what to do, but I needed even more help to know like, okay, but then what? Like I leave that. Do I bring a book? Do I bring a journal? Do I go to a coffee shop? Do we have money? Like there were all these other questions in my head about what to do with that time. And so having that weekly time to talk about these things gave us the space to figure that out over time. And so it maybe started by me like leaving the house and just driving around in circles for half an hour and then coming home to like, now I can say, okay, I just need 10 minutes to go for a walk, or, hey, can I have this? I'm going to sneak out of the house before the kids wake up on Saturday morning. Call me when you need a backup. And I'm just going to go to the coffee shop a half a mile down the road and sip on a latte and clean out my email inbox, but being able to have the space to say what, and daily life of prayer for sure, hands down, probably needs to be said out loud. But having that daily life of prayer gives that backbone for then having that weekly time to talk about, okay, what do I need this week? What does that look like right now? Because it's different in different seasons.
Beautiful. Joseph, anything you want to add for you specifically? Is there one thing of proper self-care that's like, I've got to have this once a day, once a week? What does that look like for you?
Going on runs.
Yeah. Physical exercise, being encouraged. Right. And it's a good thing. I feel better when I do it. It's very evident whether or not I'm exercising. And that it adds to the family for me to leave and do something like that. It doesn't subtract. And this is something, because on paper it seems like I'm taking away, but that just isn't the experience in the family. It gives the children something to realize, dad takes care of his body, dad takes care of these things. That probably means it's worthwhile to do, right? Like that's an example I want to give them.
Yeah. Beautiful. And I would say the only thing I would add to this is remember, we are not human doings, we are human beings. So I think as we become the logical outgrowth and progression from marriage as children, and when we become fathers and mothers, we become not persons, but places. That's what the seemingly is. But we must always recover our personhood. So that the proper self-care is really important. Again, you're going to stretch. You're going to die. It's going to hurt, right? She's going to want the conversation at 2 a.m, and she's going to remember it 8 years from now. Welcome to it, right? So this is a good thing. But and thank you. This is a beautiful conversation. I want to transition to just the last couple minutes that we have. Your work, Our Outpost. Where'd that name come from? What's this all about? Go.
So
Satan hates your marriage. He does. He hates marriages a lot. And we are in enemy territory. That is what the world is. It's something covered in darkness, something where, especially nowadays, it's even more apparent that the whole institution of marriage is under attack. The very meaning of marriage is stripped of meaning in most people's minds. And so if we want to be a Catholic marriage, we have to realize we are an outpost in enemy territory.
Yeah. So using that idea of we are part of the kingdom of heaven, but we are behind enemy lines. So we are in the domestic church is an outpost for the kingdom of heaven behind enemy lines. And so we want to support couples and people that want that for their marriages in the future in giving them both the principles and the practicals on how do we function in that reality? How do we be a missionary outpost for the kingdom of heaven in the context of holy matrimony?
Yeah. Because it starts with the love of God and the love of neighbor. And if you're married, your closest neighbor is your spouse. And so this is the framework in which culture takes place. This is the fundamental social unit, the fundamental cultural unit, the fundamental political, economic unit is marriage. It is the family that is founded on the love of man and woman.
And the church has so much to offer us on what this means, and the depths of this is just, it's so rich. It is, I think we see like a lot of people that want to be faithful to what the church teaches, and so they're very open to life, and that's beautiful. But if that's not joyful, and if there isn't more to it than that, if dad is like an absentee workaholic father, that's not actually very much different than most of the rest of society. There needs to be a more holistic perspective of what does it mean to live the teachings of the Catholic Church? What does a domestic church look like? What can it look like? But then also, like, practically speaking, that's difficult. So this is where we want to dig into the principles that the church offers us and the richness of the church. But then also there's just like organizational health principles, human formation pieces that we've been given that have positively impacted our marriage and our ability to live our life well, in my opinion. I like the life that we share together. I enjoy the rhythm of our life. There certainly are times where I'm like, man, like I still don't like cooking dinner, but I know what I'm going to cook, and there's food in the fridge to do, and it's these things, and that rhythm I do like. And so, those are things we can teach people. People say to us, like, I don't know how you do it. And I said, it's not on accident, and we can teach you if you'd like to know.
Yeah. There's a basic.
Good.
Oh,
good, Joseph.
There's a basic philosophic principle that you can't give what you don't have, but there's a kind of corresponding principle that all that you have has been given. And
well said.
Thank you. And we've been given a lot, my wife and I. The years that we spent in Focus, the experiences that we've had. I went and got a master's degree in theology. Crystal was a Creighton fertility care practitioner for a decade. We want to be able to give the things that we've received that we have found the most helpful. And we also enjoy doing it, which is helpful.
I love it. So very briefly here, where's the best place to connect with you? What are the programs in a nutshell that you offer, the services there? Why should people reach out to Our Outpost?
Yeah, so the best place to connect to find out more about what we're up to is ouroutpost.org. We have at Our Outpost is our Instagram and Facebook handle, although we're not particularly
We were active for a number of months, and then we got less active, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So, and then what we have to offer is we have a marriage membership. That's where we teach the principles and the practicals that we've just been talking about within the context of marriage. And we have some training and some live time with couples there to dive deeper into how we do those things. And then we also have a dating course, which goes through, again, principles and practicals. What does freedom and clarity look like? How do we lay a foundation of personal formation, personal holiness? And then how do we date well? What does that look like? How do we get trained in that? And that's our dating class. Those you can find more information about on our website as well. And if you want to help be a part of awakening authentic Catholic culture through the sacrament of holy matrimony, then that's what we're about. So those are the kind of people we want to work with.
Yeah.
I love it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for the vision for that you are sharing here. Marriage is clear that you guys at least tolerate each other.
From time to time.
From time to time. No, beautiful gift of love between man and woman, between man and woman is clearly being demonstrated here. And I'm just honored and I'm honored and privileged to perceive a snapshot of that. So thank you for sharing yourself with us today. So with that said, I want to go and I want you move to something completely different in what we're going to talk about here. And we call this the 12. And these are 12 questions. To my audience, our audience is very well aware of this. These are fun questions. Don't overthink them. Top of your head. Some at the end are kind of more serious, but we'll just go from this. So this is the 12. Are you ready?
Ready.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Number one, what was your first dance song title at your reception?
Was it called Beloved?
Yes, by 10th Avenue North.
Yeah. It was a very fast waltz.
Very cool. Very cool. Number two, who's most likely to do the dishes?
Me.
Joseph.
Number three, who snores the loudest?
Joseph.
Four, who's a better singer?
Ooh.
Probably Joseph. I can pitch match. So if I'm by somebody that's really good.
I can also pitch match.
But he can sing well also, just all by himself.
Okay, this is good.
I
You're
do
making
sing well.
beautiful music together. Well done. Number five, who's the optimist in the relationship?
Oh, definitely me.
Yeah, Crystal by far. Goodness gracious.
Joseph, are you the melancholic in the relationship?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Got it.
I keep
Okay.
my feet on the ground.
Honest. Okay, and she's like, let's go somewhere else.
Head in the clouds.
Good. Exactly. Six, who's a better kisser?
Probably me. No. I don't know.
It takes two to kiss.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
It depends. I don't know. I don't know.
That implies I know how good of a kisser I am.
You're
I don't-
overthinking it. I don't.
I don't know. It's enjoyable, however you want to cut it.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord for that. Praise the Lord. Number seven, who's a night owl?
Oh, Joseph.
Yeah, by far.
Number eight, who's the better cook?
Joseph is the better cook, which we have only recently discovered.
Oh, how?
Well, since we started our own ministry and I was doing some more of the stuff and he was doing things with the kids. I was like, hey, well, you just cook this dinner that I always cook. Like, here are all the ingredients.
You also had a baby.
Oh, yeah. And I had a baby.
Yeah, remember?
Anyway, so there was like a couple meals they're like staples that I cook all the time. And so he just like cooked it instead of me.
And did better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that okay with you?
This is great for me. I don't actually like
Freedom.
cooking. So I think it's
Freedom.
been fine for you.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Number nine, who is more likely to apologize first?
I think that's me.
I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. The typical melancholic has spoken here. Number 10, which actors do you think you as a couple would be you in a movie about your life?
Oh. So I really like, is it Sandra Bullock that I like in movies? I don't know. I feel like
I mean, she kind of maybe is aged out of
yeah.
Her
play.
from, like,
Okay.
Like this,
Yeah.
Since you were sleeping or while you were sleeping era, is that what you want to go?
Probably while you were sleeping era,
Yeah.
right? And then for me, probably like Brad Pitt, right?
Who's got a good beard?
Nice.
Does he have a good beard?
Yeah, well-
No, George Clooney.
Oh, yeah.
When he grows out his beard,
Yeah.
looks pretty good.
I could see George Clooney.
I think.
I like that. I'll take that. And if you're George Clooney and Brad Pitt, we can do Ocean's 11 here in family version. So,
There we go.
but Kath, I'm not sure how you steal things legitimate and morally, but anyway, that's a side note. That's
You
a
steal
movie that you've
from,
written.
like, I guess the Israelites didn't steal from the Egyptians.
It's just like
exactly.
buying relics off of
They were
eBay
given.
so that other people.
Yeah, they
can
were
sell.
given. They just were never returned.
This is interesting. I want to see if there's a writer out to write this story. That's interesting.
Ah.
Number 11. As a couple, what's your bucket list country or city?
Ireland.
I think I missed a little bit of the question. The bucket list, country or city
Country or city to visit?
to visit. Together,
You've been to Ireland.
I've been to Ireland.
Goa.
It's not on my bucket list. It's on yours. I think Ireland to live. We have it
We want to
on our
live in
13-month
Ireland.
anniversary. We said we want to live at least 9 months in Ireland together.
So probably Ireland.
Probably Ireland.
Aaron, go bra. Let's do that. I
Yeah.
like it. Okay, fantastic. And number 12, why get married in the Catholic Church?
Sacramental grace.
sacramental grace.
You need nature too, so don't depend on that to be the only thing to help you out. But it is.
Yeah, there's a clear definition of what marriage is in the Catholic Church.
Freedom.
It's
clarity.
Yeah, I like the clarity. I like how it's configured to the love of Christ. Like if you know who Jesus is, and he says, "Here's a way to love like me," that's an attractive offer. And if you don't know Jesus, then saying, "Try to love like Jesus," this guy who got hung up on a cross and died. Do that. That's not an attractive offer. So it's like it does require a relationship with Christ in order to be attractive. But presuming that, it's I just don't know any other way I would want to live my life, you know?
Yeah, it's because it's going to be hard no matter what. So let's have the grace and do the work to do the thing that's defined for the good of our salvation.
Also, you can either do it on your own. Okay, no, go ahead. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, like, no, I won't say it. Like every time I think about maybe I should leave the Catholic Church because, it's getting hard or confusing, or certain people have said certain things that are wrong or misleading without naming any names or saying anything of any substance. But I'm like, why would I leave this thing that has such a beautiful vision for life and such this is it's an incredibly beautiful life. And it's something that can allow for real joy and vulnerability and stability. And it gives that kind of stability to our children. Like to be able to say, I can put myself in a position to create life with someone and to create a home that fosters life and love and joy. The Catholic Church has a really good beat on that.
Well said. And I would just, the only thing I would add is there is beauty that comes from surrendering the suffering to the cross. Right? Yeah. And this is specifically why Jesus Christ came to give us the church, to give us a home, not just a house, but a home to be that's present, that we can be ourselves. And in that process, we'll find redemption and salvation. So,
Amen.
Amen. Joseph and Crystal Gruber, an honor to have you on the Redeemed Vision podcast. Your ministry, Our Outpost, founded at ouroutpost.org, is critically important. Please continue to do this work. Be assured of our prayers here, and I'll talk to you after this, but we're going to close up shop for the day. So thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having us, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
An honor. And for all of us here at the Redeemed Vision podcast, again, I'm Steve Pokorny, founder of Free Coaching. Remember, nothing is wasted. Everything is redeemable. And until next time, we'll see you then. God bless.
The Redeemed Vision podcast is an outreach of Freedom Coaching. To learn more, check out freedom-coaching.net and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and MeWe.